What up? It's Q&A time. Chaz here. Let's talk about questions and answers. I have the answers, you have the questions, so we are going to roll through them. Anyways, I think it's going to be a good time. Something new, something different, but hey, that's what it's all about, right? Really quick, super fun tip. This thing right here, this communicates to your wife, which is super sick. All you have to do is you spin it 3 times and it will let your wife what you're doing, like let her know what you're doing. And then she gives me the okay or not. So 1, 2, 3. We're all good. Let's film this video. All right, so there's so many different questions that I actually got. And what I did was I put up a post on the community section of my YouTube page for questions. If you guys had any questions at all, you could just leave them right there and I was gonna plan on answering them. So the first one comes from Evo Elite. If I said that right. If I didn't, I super apologize. You actually had a 2-part question, and here was the first part. Question was, when doing intervals, what do you recommend for hydration? And they used an example of, do you just go out with just, maybe bottles with drink mix in it? Do you go out with like 1 bottle of mix, 1 bottle of water? Do you go out with both bottles of water? Super simple. This is what I'm gonna tell you. When I do intervals, I always use drink mix because your body is going to be sweating, your body is going to be working super hard, and drink mix is a super easy way to get electrolytes, get sodium replenished, and just overall hydration back into your body. So when I do longer rides too, especially over an hour, I'm going to have both bottles are going to be with drink mix. Even when I race, I will put drink mix in both bottles. Now with racing, we have a feed zone, so I can actually get plain water from the feed zone. Or I can even get another bottle of drink mix from the feed zone. If my wife goes, she's usually in the feed zone, then I can get another bottle of drink mix. But for most of the time, I actually do use drink mix in my bottles. Plus, it's also an easy way to get in more calories because the drink mix I use is Goo Roctane, I believe is what it is. Anyways, it's got 60 grams of carbs per bottle. And really, you need 60 to 80 grams of carbs per hour. So I'm gonna try to take one of those on, maybe smash that in about an hour, hour 15. And then I'm also gonna use supplement with some gels and stuff. But yes, drink mix, I definitely use it. Anything an hour or more, both bottles will have it. If it's just an hour, and I do take 2 bottles, one might be water, one might be drink mix. That's how I roll with that. Now, the second part of your question was, how often do you drink on the bike? Do you drink every 5 minutes? Do I drink between intervals? How does that work? And honestly, man, it's really gonna depend on you. So for what I try to do a bottle an hour. So I know, within the first 10 to 15 minutes, I start sipping on the bottle, and then hopefully I'm gonna finish it by an hour. Actually most of the time, I don't. If it's hot out, I will definitely finish it within an hour. If it's cold out, it's a lot harder to make sure you drink all that in 1 hour. But that's what I shoot for. I don't have any fancy time or anything that tells me every 5 minutes, drink. I just kind of approach it that way. Like, one thing I did learn is drink before you are thirsty. When you drink before you're thirsty, you're all good. When you drink when you are thirsty, you're now behind. So I just kind of sip it when I can. I will do it, I probably take the most amount of liquid in post interval. So I'll finish an interval, I'll chug quite a bit, smash some gels, then I'll do the next interval. Depending on how long the intervals are, like if I'm doing 30 to 40 minute intervals, I'll probably take a swig or 2 during the interval. But if it's like short 3-minute ones, I don't drink during them. I always drink right after them. That's how I do my hydration. Everyone's different. You find what works for you, but that's what I do. Just keep sipping. Question 2 is from Myron Gaines. Something he asked is, how often do you ride the indoor trainer versus riding outdoors? Let me think on that one. Outdoors all day. I hardly ever ride it. Honestly, that's not even my bike. That's my wife's bike, okay? She's set up to ride indoors right now. So I honestly don't even ride outdoors. I don't ride indoors. I ride outdoors all the time. The only time I ride indoors is if it's raining, super smoky outside, just bad weather, if it's like 112 degrees outside, or if it's like freezing cold, which is never freezing cold here. So that's when I ride indoors. Sometimes I will ride indoors, maybe just Actually, no. I hardly ever run indoors. I think in this whole time during the off season, I've ridden Zwift twice. So I can count it on one hand, twice so far, and I think that was actually in the last week or so. Anyways, I never ride indoors. Another question that he had though, that Myron had, was, do I have an estimate of how much my FTP has actually improved over the years? So I was actually looking back through some of my data here, and back in 2015, my FTP was around 305 watts. I think 2014, I was around 290 watts. And then after 2015 to 2016, I jumped up to about 325. So there's a pretty big jump right there. I think it was about 5%. And then after that, I think I just had a little 2% gains. Although in the last year, it's definitely jumped up another maybe 5%. So from 2015, I was 305 to 2020, I am up around 355 watts right now, getting ready to go into 2021. Super sick. So that's where the FTP has gone. And then a third part to his overall question was, what has been the most effective training to actually raise my FTP or my threshold? And I'm gonna say the most effective thing, especially when I was looking back through the years of data, each year I got more and more consistent on the bike, meaning I rode the bike when I was supposed to ride the bike, and I didn't take these long periods of break. So the more consistent you are on the bike, or at least for me, the more consistent I was on the bike, the more gains I saw, the more I got to hang on to my threshold during kind of the valleys, or there's peaks and valleys of your fitness. During the valleys of my fitness, I hung on to my threshold. Then when we would build back up, my threshold would come up with it. So that's what I recommend is the most effective training. Obviously, there's going to be threshold training and intervals and different things like that, but being consistent on the bike is huge. When I coach athletes, a lot of them make these crazy good gains in the first couple months. Like we're talking like 5% gains in threshold, because they're now riding 5 to 6 days a week consistently, whether it be an hour a day, or maybe some of them are on the higher side of volume where they're doing 15 hours a week. It doesn't matter. They start riding consistently. Their body gets used to it, starts to adapt to it. He goes, hey, we want to make things more efficient. And that's what it does by riding consistently. So overall, in those 5 years, the one thing I've done that's really helped me raise my threshold is consistency on the bike. 2 questions down. Here's the third question. This one comes from the Butcher. He said, how do you approach the build phase? This is an interesting one to answer. So again, this one is going to depend a lot on what your goals actually are when it comes to your races. I don't know if you're going to be peaking for a road race, if you're going to be trying to do well in crits, if you're going to be trying to do well in, maybe it's a Grand Fondo, maybe it's just a group ride, maybe there's actually no event at all and you just want to be overall fit. It really does depend, so this can be super hard one to answer. But when you do the base season, through about October to December and a little bit of January, I mean, basically what you're doing is you're laying the foundation, right? A lot of people will do a lot of tempo work, they'll do a lot of sweet spot work, and then they'll also jump into some threshold stuff a little bit through there. The one thing that people never do during the base season is they never hit on VO2, which does not help at all. Every 10 to 12, actually 10 to 14 days, you need to do some sort of little VO2 block, just a maintenance type one during the base season, just to keep your VO2 so you don't lose it or it doesn't decline, but rather you just kind of keep it where it is, so then you can build on top of that. So during the base season, I mean, obviously, you're gonna be doing a lot of sweet spot, you're gonna be doing some tempo. There's different types of sweet spot you can do that, I'm not even going into that because we're talking about build. And then when you come out of that, you should have a hit on VO2 a little bit. But then when you come into the build, this is where you're gonna spend a little bit more time on some threshold work, but you're definitely gonna spend more time on the VO2 max part of things. So when you approach the build, you wanna start with some of those longer VO2 max efforts. So they're gonna be the lower end of your VO2, they're gonna be more of like threshold area VO2 stuff. And then as you progress, you're going to want to move into the anaerobic side of the VO2. So you're going to hit on the higher side of the VO2. This is where you can do your 2 minute on, 2 minute off VO2s, or your 1 minute on, 1 minute off anaerobic VO2 high intensity stuff. And your build phase is kind of like 2 months. So the first month you're gonna really hit on the longer side or the lower side of your VO2, the 4 to 5 minute stuff. And then as you approach, after the first 4 to 5 weeks, you should have a really solid base in that. And then you're gonna up it just a little bit and bring time down. So now you're gonna hit on the higher end of the VO2 in the 2 to 3 minute range, even possibly the 1 minute range. And then as you lead up to your final event, whatever it is, you're gonna wanna be doing supplement and a little bit of threshold in there too, some of the longer ones like 20-minute threshold efforts. And then also on the backside, supplement in some hard anaerobic 30 by 30 type stuff. And then you want to taper, and that's kind of how you approach the build. So for those 2 months, the first month, you want to do the longer VO2 range, the more of the 5 to 8 minute range. And then the second month, you're going to do more of the 1 to 4 minute range. And then at the very last week, 2 weeks, you're going to top it off with some 30 by 30s or Tabatas or things of that nature. But that should actually get you super, super good and built up, considering you had a really good base through the off season. So that hopefully that answers your question and that makes sense. We'll see. 3 done. Question number 4. Here we go. Ryan Doris, he asked, how much does volume of intervals change as you get older? All right, so he says, I'm a Cat 1 and he's also 40 years old or 48 years old. He used to do a ton of interval reps, but now that he's older, should he actually be doing less reps? The answer to this question is gonna be this. If you've been training consistently all those years and you've built up to a certain point of, the kind of interval work you can handle, I would keep doing that. Really, once you get 50 and older, then you can maybe pull back a little bit. But honestly, you need to do, the same amount of interval. Maybe you're not doing the same amount of intervals each week. Maybe instead of doing 3 to 4 days a week of interval work, you're only doing 2 to 3 now. That's totally fine. But I think you can still do those longer intervals because you still need them for racing, right? And the other thing too is it depends on what kind of racing you're doing. So if the duration of your racing has actually shrunk a little bit, then you could actually get away with doing slightly less intervals. So when it comes to the interval part, one thing to think about is there's an athlete, her name is was Amber Nugent. She, if I said her last name right. She's an older athlete, but she's crushing it. I believe she's in her 40s and she's still rocking it super hard in basically in the women's pro peloton. She's killing it at Worlds. I think the Worlds TT, she got 6th this year. She's planning to go to the Olympics for cycling. I think she did fairly okay in the World's road race. I don't think it was her cup of tea, that road race, but still, she's an older athlete and she's still performing at the top of her game. I don't think as you get older you need to necessarily cut the intervals back, but again, you can do less days because you do need a little bit more time between sessions to recover. So I think you can still do the same amount of work, you just have to do less days during the week. So say you did a workout in your prime, you were doing a workout where you're doing, maybe you're doing 2 by 20 sweet spot 4 days a week. Okay, now that you're 48, maybe you're doing 2 by 20 sweet spot 2 days a week, or maybe 3 days a week on a heavier week. All right, that's what I would do. I wouldn't change it to where you do 2 by 10 sweet spot 4 days a week. Instead, I'd keep it at the 20 minute because you're still doing 20 minutes of time. But then I would change it to just, maybe 2 or 3 days. So don't necessarily cut back the duration of intervals, but cut back the days that you do intervals. Okay, here we go. Next question is by Peter Burr, and he asked this. He said, how to start training for weight loss. So he lives in New England, and most of it, if not all of his riding, is actually done indoors. So he's trying to make gains over the winter so he can actually hang with the fast guys in the spring. So how do you start training for weight loss? I'm gonna be honest, it's gonna take discipline, all right? You're gonna have to take discipline to lose the weight. And the way you do this is, one, you need to make smart choices in the food department. One thing you will not find in my house, if you came over yo, Chaz, you got any snacks? I'm gonna go, no, I actually have no snacks. I don't have anything for you. What do you want, chips? Not in this house. What do you want, cookies? Not in this house. Yo, my buddy Nick loves Pop-Tarts. When he comes over, guess what? There ain't no Pop-Tarts in this house, all right? No snacking. I don't snack. So food choices, we make all of our food usually. I have hardly anything that's pre-packaged. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, I can't even think of anything off the top of my head that's pre-packaged. Like everything we pretty much make, all right? So I would start there, just making good choices in the food department. So going whole foods, trying to make your meals. When you make your meals, you know what's in them. So then you are now self-consciously aware of how much you're actually eating. I would also do portion control. Something I do is I drink a lot of water during the day to make sure I'm hydrated, and it helps me to stay feeling more full. So I wouldn't go and just stuff your mouth with food all the time, but maybe before a meal you sit down and you chug a glass of water and then you eat your meal, because that's gonna help you not to overeat, all right? So start with portion control. Something else I do a lot of, and I do this all the time, is I track my calories, okay? I give myself a calorie budget and know how much I spend on the bike. I know how much I need to eat on off days, and I go based off of how many calories, and I track my food. I know what's what, I know how much it is. So then I also know if I actually am hungry and I want to overeat, I know how many calories are in that, and I'll actually push that away and maybe find something else that is less calorie dense, all right? Not as many calories in such a small meal. So one thing I've actually started doing too is sometimes, you know, I get really hungry in the evenings, so I'll get those pre-packaged like salad kits, and I will dump that in a bowl. Now, the key there is you don't use the freaking dressing, okay? Don't use it. Well, actually, you can use it, but I use like half or less of the dressing, like just enough to give my salad like just a little bit of taste, all right? Other than that, it's like eating like a rabbit. So I put it all in the bowl, mix it all up. There's this giant bowl. My wife's like, yo, can I have some of that? And I'm like, no, fool. This is my dinner, right? So I take it and I keep it to myself, and I know, super stubborn, I make her own salads, don't worry, she still gets salad. But I take this whole salad, it's like 4 servings for like 4 people, right? I'll eat that whole thing, and honestly, I am full almost the rest of the night, so there's no late night snacking. That's one way I do it. When you're on the bike, do not skip out on nutrition on the bike. Eat as normal on the bike. A lot of people will try to do weight loss by skipping out on nutrition on the bike. All that's gonna do is affect your performance, it's going to affect your recovery, and you're not gonna be making the gains or adaptations that you need to be making. So do not do that. Make sure if you do eat a carb heavy meal, do it immediately after your workout. So you finish your workout, carb load really heavy then, and then as the evening goes on, I'll cut back a little bit on the carbs. Again, I do a massive salad in the evening. Seems to work for me. Sometimes we'll do other stuff, but that's what I do. Try that out. Try with a bigger breakfast, then do your ride, then do less like a smaller dinner in the evening. That's one way to do it. And again, you're gonna have to do whatever works for you. Everyone's completely different when it comes to weight loss. There's no one size fits all right? You gotta find what works for you. You're gonna find the foods that work for you. You're also gonna figure out which foods makes you kind of like retain water, all right? So that's another thing about weight loss, is a lot of it is water too. But you have to be hydrated. The more you drink, especially when you eat, it's easier for your body to absorb what it needs and get rid of what it doesn't. So make sure you hydrate while eating as well. And that's just kind of my tip for when it comes to weight loss. All right, that was a lot of questions, and you know what? I think we got through, how many questions did we even take care of? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions done. I've got quite a few other questions. I'm gonna break this up because this is already gonna be a pretty long video, like I can already feel it. So I'm gonna break this up. I will do a part 2 to this video. You guys can keep adding questions to that community tab that I have on the YouTube page, or you can put the questions down in the comments below. But I hope these helped. If you guys have any of your own answers to some of the questions that were asked today, please leave them in the comments. Like, I'm just one person and I have just one opinion. So I'd love to hear other people's opinions on these different things too. As always, guys, hey, I really appreciate you watching it, and hope this helped a lot. Keep riding and training hard, and I'm gonna see you guys on the next video.